Acqua here, Acqua there, Acqua everywhere. Yes, Acqua de Parma for me, the greatest fragrance brand in the world. Yes, good morning. It is that time of the weekend. It's my late shift at work today, and I wanted to do something a bit different on my run today as the weather is looking very nice out there. Feel like I need a fresh fragrance. I was going to do a weird layering video, but I think it's so hot and so sticky out there. I'm going to save that one for another day. So what I thought I would do is I'll talk about my favourite fragrance brand. Well, I think it's probably my favourite, most expensive fragrance brand anyway, in terms of those more niche ones. Acqua de Parma. I love Acqua de Parma fragrances. They do a lot of fresh fragrances. They do a few more in a concentrate line, which are a little bit more suited to those night out wears. But in general, I think they're best known for their summer citrus Italian fragrances at its best. Italian fragrances for me are the absolute number one alongside French fragrances. Acqua de Parma though at the very, very top for me. And yeah, what I'm going to do today, I'm going to do my usual run about 10 miles, and I'm going to give my sort of 10 reasons essentially why I think they are the best fragrance brand. So at the moment I currently own three. Got Fico di Amalfi here, Rancia di Capri, both from their Blue Mediterranean lines. Fig and orange are the main notes in those ones. And then one of my first Acqua di Parma fragrances, well no, it was my first Acqua di Parma fragrance, Colonia Pura, but I've tried many of the other ones. Colonia Essenza, currently got a clone of that one actually at the moment. I've tried Abano, which was part of that sort of concentrate line, Sandalo, loads. I could list off so many more. Honestly, they are brilliant. I love them a lot. Colonia Club, Intensa, they're just brilliant fragrances. Number one for me, and that's what I want to share with you today. So what I'm going to do, get myself changed, and we're going to go through all the reasons during my run why I think Acqua di Parma are the best fragrances. Let's put on Fico di Amalfi for that moment. Oh, but in the midst of rushing to get out to make sure I do my run before work, I've been really silly. Forgot my hat and the sunglasses, so I do apologise if I'm squinting all the way through this video today. But most importantly, I do have a fragrance on. I have Fico di Amalfi by Acqua di Parma on, and that is what we're talking about today. We're talking about the 10 reasons why I think Acqua di Parma is the best fragrance brand. And the first one for me is that it's completely unisex. Now, and you'll find this with a lot of the expensive brands or more niche brands, even if some lean more masculine or some lean more feminine, they tend to market all their fragrances for men and women. I've noticed a lot of these brands do that, whether it's Tom Ford, which do have their own men's range, Creed, or, you know, in this case, Acqua di Parma. More often than not, they tend to be for men and women. And I do think in the case of Acqua di Parma, because they do a lot of fresh fragrances, a lot of safe notes, whether that's a citrus note, a bit of bergamot or some florals involved, they do tend to have that feeling of, actually, yeah, they're straight down the middle unisex. You know, Bergamotto di Calabria, which is also part of this Blue Mediterranean line. Fico di Amalfi here, which is a fig fragrance. They have a Cedrat di Taormina, which is like this really rindy fragrance. Rancia di Capri, which is the other Blue Mediterranean fragrance you would have seen, I had in my collection earlier. That's just like a really plain orange smell. And yeah, again, it could easily be worn men and women in equal measure. It's absolutely fine for that, and it's also not too heavy. But what it does give you is an element of sophistication as well, where an older person could rock this, but a younger person is not going to think, oh, this smells really different to anything I've smelt before. So for that reason, I think Acqua di Parma are brilliant, completely unisex, and for me that makes it a really good gift for a man or a woman, or just for a treat for yourself, because you know you're getting quality, but on the whole is relatively safe. With that in mind, it leads on perfectly to my second point, my second positive, and it's the variety. Now, this is a brand, Acqua di Parma, where I think you could literally just own their fragrances and get everything you want out of them. There's some brands that kind of lean themselves more to citrusy fresh scents. There's some that just are designed fragrances that are all built mainly for night out. Acqua di Parma ticks so many boxes. You know, you've got the original Colonia, which came out in 1916. That's a very linear, safe sort of citrus summer scent. And obviously you've got the associated flankers with that one as well, whether that's Intensa, Essenza, Pura, which I've got. It gives you that slight change, that slight vibe from the original, but can also be used in the same situations. You've then got some of those more fragrances that are a little bit more complex in the black bottles these days. Sandalo, which has obviously sandalwood's the main note in that. So you've got this woody complexion, a little bit more serious, but definitely wearable for those more office situations rather than just casual situations. Vaniglia as well, which adds a little bit of sweetness. It looks like they've discontinued Acqua di Parma leather, but if you can still get it, Again, more formal wear, but they still do have oud. So there's plenty of different notes and different fragrances, some that are more suited to the summertime, some that are more suited to dressing up and winter wear occasions, and that's what's really good with them. There's different strengths on these as well. The original colognes, they have just recently released an eau de parfum line, I think, for colognes, but they tend to be eau de colognes in the Acqua Parma line, and then those darker fragrances, they tend to be more like an eau de parfum. So you get different strengths, you get different sort of profiles for different attires and different occasions, and I think that's what makes them really good. There's a lot of variety there, a lot of versatility, and if you just had 3 or 4 in your collection with a bit of that variety in it, that's your collection sorted for every single occasion you need it to be used for. So point number 3, and to be honest, this is one that could divide opinion, but I think if you're a fragrance enthusiast and you're considering buying Acqua Parma maybe for the first time, or getting another one of their fragrances, I think you'd probably say, on the whole, for a high-end niche brand, they're quite inexpensive. Now, I'm not saying go on their website and go and pay the full retail price, but if you go on websites like All Beauty particularly, because they tend to have a lot of Acqua Parma sales, you can get 150ml bottles of a Blue Mediterranean line, or 180ml bottles even of their Cologne line, where you're only paying just under or around that £100 mark. I mean, the 2 Blue Mediterraneans I've got at the minute, and the one I'm wearing on this run, Fica di Amalfi, I think I paid about £75-76 for 150ml. Now look, I'm not saying that's cheap by any stretch, but when you're looking at the quality of this in comparison to some of the designers, and I appreciate with the designers you're paying for the name as well as much as anything, whether it's the Paco Rabanne 1 million or Dior Sauvage, of course you're paying for the name of those things as well, which adds a little bit to the price. But if you're purely someone who wants constant quality and also a little bit of uniqueness, you're getting that. That's what you're paying for here. Look, they haven't got the big flashy bottles, they're all very uniform and look very professional, but they're all about the scent more than anything. And overall, if you're paying £100 for a really high-end scent quality, which I think punches well above its weight when you think Tom Ford's £300, these easily can stand up to them, and I think in that sense, it's not that bad value for money. You can get 2 or 3 bottles of this for the price of one Tom Ford, and I think for that extra juice and extra quality, in my opinion, sometimes it's just worth paying that bit extra. They're probably the first brand I had where I obviously spent a bit more, and then I thought, do you know what, I've got loads of nice cheap ones, but I can tell this one's a higher end one, and I can tell there is a level of quality in this. Okay, so on to point number 4, and this one is a pretty obvious one for me, and it's probably the main reason why anyone likes fragrances in the first place. Compliments galore, and to be honest, it doesn't matter which one I've worn, and I'm going to give you kind of 3 stories for today where I've had compliments in different situations. Well, one's actually my brother's and 2 are my own ones, and the first one I had with mine was actually for a Barno. So I used to work obviously at a school, and a lady who I used to work with, one of the teaching assistants, she always mentioned my spray. She was never afraid to sort of mention it, because she liked to buy a sun hit. Her son was actually a model, funnily enough, and I don't think it was for him, I think it was more for her husband, but she had an interest in beauty and glamour essentially, and she said, oh, what's that one? And I was wearing a Barno bike with a Parma. It's a lovely ebony wood fragrance. They've discontinued it, which is ridiculous in my opinion, but literally for 3 to 4 weeks she could never remember the name of it, because I never had written it down or anything. So when you say a Barno, you know, how would you write that one? You probably put an R in it. She said, oh, I've been looking for it for weeks. And eventually, after about 3 or 4 weeks of her asking me, she was like, can you just write it down? Because she just wanted to try and find it in the shop. Unfortunately, she had no luck with that one. But honestly, for weeks, I was pestered around wearing a Barno. And that one is a very good fragrance. I have to say, she does have good taste if she's mentioning that. Now, the other one I'm going to mention for my brother next. Now, this one was Cologne Club, which was the original Cologne Club when it was an all-green bottle. My brother went to the doctors for a blood test, and my brother's quite a nervy person in these sort of situations, particularly on a one-to-one environment with someone he doesn't know. And the doctor or the GP or whoever he went to see said to him, oh, you smell really nice, what are you wearing? And it was Cologne Club, and funny enough, he was like, I'm going to have to write that down. So my brother did, a little bit like I said a minute ago. He had to actually write this one down for the doctor or the GP to order it, and that kind of relaxed him on the day. Again, subconsciously, I think, oh, they had something in common, and it didn't make him feel as nervous then when he went to have a blood test, because he'd just spoken to this bloke about fragrances for 10-20 minutes while having all these things, all these checks done. And then the third one, again, is another situation I had probably, it's about 1.5 years ago. I was wearing the original Acqua Parma Essenza, so not the clone that I have at the minute, and I went to this kind of awards night. I was invited to this awards night and it was like a local council awards. It was trying to get some money, some grant funding, and when you went in, you were greeted by the mayor of the council. So, you know, she'd shake everyone's hands. You go in, and I was quite dressed up, and I put a cylinder on that night just because I thought it was perfect for that sort of occasion. And the first thing she said to me was, "Oh, you smell really nice, that's lovely." And I did the old, "Oh, you sure that's me?" She said, "Yeah, it's definitely you. That's lovely, what is that?" And then I just said, "Oh, it's Acqua, Parma, and she just said, "Sounds expensive." And then obviously a few hours went by, you had the award, you had this raffle, and then as I was leaving again, she was standing at the door to sort of say goodbye, thanks for coming for everyone. And she said to me, "Oh, yeah, keep wearing that fragrance, it smells nice." And I just thought that was really funny at the time, you know. That's how I'm been remembered for that was. I'm not going up to get our little check which I took on behalf of our work. It was about me smelling nice, and it was Acqua Parma, which for me is an amazing compliment getting sent. Okay, as that last clip was very long, I'm going to do a shorter positive for number 5, and that is, it's amazing for scent memories, positive scent memories. These for me, particularly the Blue Mediterranean and Colonia lines, those fresher lines, make you feel like you're on holiday, on vacation. So if you've got a summer holiday trip planned, maybe to Italy, maybe to Venice, which always looks absolutely lovely, it's a place I'm dreaming of going one day, or even if it's in the UK or US or wherever you do a bit of a staycation, on a hot summer's day, sitting by the pool or sitting on the beach with a fresh sea breeze, these fragrances are the absolute best. They're never too heavy, they're never too cloying, as we said. They're quite weak in terms of some of their performance, which is maybe a little bit of a negative because they just smell so good, you want them to last a little bit longer. But Fico di Amalfi here, this fruity fig fragrance, it's quite strong for 2 to 3 hours. And if again you're sitting by the pool, it's just very calming, very relaxing. And it can take a bit of pressure off you. I'm actually going to do 2 here, I'm going to do number 6 as well. I wore this one in September for a job interview, just because again I wanted something that wasn't going to be too heavy, that made me feel uncomfortable, particularly if I'm getting hot and sweaty, but also leave a good impression, and it made you feel like you really made an effort, not just for yourself but everyone around you. And I just felt very calm. I could smell that one while I was waiting for the gentleman doing my interview to come back in, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I do smell good, I feel ready." And it just put me in that strong positive mindset before I even knew what the questions were. And whether it's a driving test now, which I was really nervous for at the time, or anything else, I think now Acqua Parma fragrances, particularly those fruity ones like this one, Fico di Amalfi, would be absolutely perfect. It's so bright, it's so uplifting, and it's got a uniqueness which someone may remember you by, or it may just bring back those good memories of a vacation as well, which we touched upon. So for me, it can take the pressure off, that's the 6th point, but it can also create those really strong scent memories in a good sense. Okay, on to number 7, and this is probably a bit of a bizarre one, saying this may not matter to some people, but it matters to me if I have people coming around, and that is that they look good on your shelf. Now, the one thing I really am a big fan of with not just Acqua Parma but fragrance brands in general is when they have uniform bottles. Now, I do quite like the odd gimmicky bottle, whether that's the trophy like you get in the Invictus line, or Moschino Toy Boo where you have like a bear. But if I've got like a really nice shelf of fragrances, like these high-end Acqua Parma fragrances, and they're all in the same uniform, the same shaped bottles, and obviously you've got the slightly different colours because some of the obviously the Blue Mediterranean line blue bottles, Colonia line tend to be more clear bottles, and their kind of more night out concentrate line tends to be sort of those brown or black bottles. It just looks nice, it looks neat, it looks tidy. And if you've got so many fragrances, if you want so many fragrances, you want them on display, I like the fact they look uniform. I don't really want a bear and a trophy and a heart-shaped bottle and a gold bar, essentially. As much as that suits the purpose for me, that's not really what I'm after here. I want something that's going to look really uniform and really neat, rather than like a kid's, play set, essentially. But that's just nitpicking. I'm trying to get up to 10 reasons here. But if you do have an Acqua Parma and you see the nice label, quality lids, the spray, the atomizers, they're all really high quality. I've never had an issue with them at all. I think you feel like you're spraying luxury. So it does matter a little bit to me. It's not gimmicky. To me, you look at the bottle and it screams classy, high end, and it's backed up by the scent. Okay, so on to point number 8, and this is probably more for your fragrance enthusiasts here. It adds an element of uniqueness. Now, again, there's some high-end brands, and there's obviously a lot of phrases where, say Tom Ford, for example, Tobacco Vanille has been cloned so many times. Now, do I think the original Tobacco Vanille smells amazing and better than those clones. Yes, I do. But Acqua di Parma fragrances, look, I've got a few clones of them, but they're not as well known. It's not as well known a brand as, say, some of those higher end designer fragrances that you can spend a little bit more on. So even those high end scents, this one has an element of uniqueness in comparison to them. And even on a lower scale, you know, I look at some of the fragrances like a Dior. Everyone knows the smell of Dior, and if you're a fragrance enthusiast, some of you may love Dior's fragrance, some of you may not like it. But one thing's for certain, even if you're someone who doesn't have a really strong interest in fragrances, I've smelled many people at the gym who would deliberately go and get a clone of this scent or a clone of 1 million purely because they know that's what everyone's wearing. But if you're someone who's into fragrances, you probably want something a bit different because your range of knowledge is greater and you're probably happier to go and explore, spend a bit more, and maybe try something that may be more divisive, but, you know, could be, if you get a compliment on it, the best compliment you ever get. And that's what I find with Acqua di Parma. I've had many compliments on this one, or this phrase in particular, but also, as we touched upon earlier, many in their lines. And the one thing I've always said is when people have asked me what's that, I've had a real mixed bag of responses. I've had some people that have known, you know, they've heard of it, you know, briefly, fleetingly. They've never bought one from them, but they've heard of the brand. But I've heard also many people go, oh, I've never heard of that brand, and they've gone, Acqua di, what was that, sorry? And they have to double check with you and maybe get you to type it in their phone for them as well to find out what it is because they want to smell them. So what they do is they give you an element of uniqueness, they're a bit of a conversation starter, and they make you stand out even more so than some of those phrases like a Creed. You know, Creed Aventus is so well known, it's so well cloned. And that doesn't, and even if you've maybe thought, oh, I've never smelt the original before, when you actually smell it, you go, oh, I've recognised that scent. Whereas I'll be honest with you, Acqua di Parma, even as clones, there's nowhere near as many as some of those Creed fragrances, Tom Ford fragrances, and that makes it stand out for me. That element of uniqueness, for those of you that are into your fragrances, I think is a huge positive. Okay, so on to point number 9, and this is a bit of a weird one. I'm not quite sure how to word this, but they stay true to their classics. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm sure you've all been in situations where you've had a phrase you've absolutely loved, and I've had a few from Zara in particular, which is obviously not too expensive a brand. You're paying sort of £20-30 for their fragrances, where you get one and you go, oh, that's absolutely lovely, I'm obsessed with that, I want to get that one again. And by the time you finish your box and you go to buy another one, it's been discontinued and there's no sign of it coming back. And what you do find, particularly with some of those brands, particularly clothing brands and some of those more cheaper designer ranges, all they're really worried about is just getting out as many new releases as they can because they know people are going to jump and buy them. And as a result, they don't tend to keep some of their classic scents, but what Acqua di Parma has done is it's always stayed very true to some of their OG fragrances, let's say. So Colonia, to me, there's no sign of that one going absolutely anywhere at all. Essenza, which is a newer release, still very much available, very popular. And of course, look, it must be doing well on sale for them to keep. I'm not saying that they're just keeping them because they've had a few people say on reviews that's really nice. But it does feel as a brand, they're not just going out and releasing 20, 30 new fragrances all the time. They stick very true to the ones they've got. They know what they've got is popular, and they know people will keep coming back and buying it. And I look at some brands, obviously Versace recently has been bought out by Prada, and you do worry about, you know, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of some of those original Versace scents like the Dream or Versace Blue Jean, but you do worry what direction Versace may go in now in the future. Is it going to come more soapy, more like Prada? Is it eventually going to just merge into Prada? And even Mugler these days, Pure Havana, one of my favourite scents, Pure Malt, you can't get those ones anymore. You have to go on eBay to get them on discontinued lines. Whereas it feels like Acqua di Parma is still very much doing well, still very much its own brand. And if you really want to go and get their original fragrances or some of their more modern ones that you love and enjoy, they don't just get rid of them straight away and go and release the new shiny toy. And that's what I really like about them. You can be pretty confident that what you buy, you can wear it through, save it, and then go and get another one of those classics. But I am surprised leather's gone, so I do contradict myself a little bit, but I do think leather is a note in fragrances, even though I've read some reports that say that it's more popular. I think those really heavy, smoky ones are becoming less wearable, unless you're Aramis, which is of course a huge part of their DNA. But yeah, in the case of Acqua di Parma though, their Colonia line, which is their big selling point, I think a lot of their main fragrances are still here to stay, because you can be safe of buying one, enjoying it, and enjoying it again in the future. And the final point then, so point number 10, is gifting. Now, I don't mean just gifting a fragrance, because they are brilliant gifts, as you could probably tell from all the praising I've given these fragrances so far. But I did do a video not too long ago, a fragrance drive on, where I spoke about some of the weird perfume fragrance related gifts you can get from these brands. And Acqua de Parma do a chessboard. Now, I want to say it's about £2,000. So don't get me wrong, I know this is very expensive and probably nobody's going to really buy it. But it's essentially got chess pieces that are actual little samples of fragrances, which I just thought was a brilliant idea. It's an amazing little gift idea if you wanted to treat yourself. So for me this year, it's my milestone 30th birthday, and I do kind of want to get myself like a personalised engraved gift. But something like a chessboard, if you love your chess, with sample fragrances in, I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's really classy, it's really unique, and it's certainly a standout showpiece. It's all high quality. But they also do engraving. I know Creed do this one as well, but they do engraved bottles where you can put your name on it. And I'm thinking, well, one of my favourite fragrances, obviously being a Senza, I could get an engraved bottle. I think it's £150 for 100ml, engraved with my name on it. And I think, oh, that would be really nice. So it's one of those things where, obviously, use the fragrance if you love it, but you could keep the fragrance, or you could just keep the bottle ultimately, which you would do at the end, have your name on it, and it's something that you can remember your 30th or whatever birthday you have as a gift in the future as well. You go, oh, I bought that for my 30th birthday, or I got that for someone else for their wedding, or any special occasion essentially. And I think that's really nice. They do other things. They do some nice leather sort of cases, I believe, as well, to store your fragrance bottles in, and just some really unique gift ideas. And I love that. I love that about them as a brand. I do think a lot of niche brands are doing that as well, coming up with these quirky ideas and charging an absolute fortune. But you do get, and I think with Acqua de Parma, I do need to reiterate from every experience I've had of the sprays, you know, I know they've been around £100. I think I spent 120 on Sandalo once, but I'd still believe I got what I paid for that one. And I think some of these gifts, even if they are an expense, get them for a special occasion, I don't think you'll feel ripped off. Well, I certainly know I wouldn't anyway, and I think that is a big positive. I like those quirky gift ideas, and it is something I'm definitely considering for my 30th birthday. Not the chessboard, the engraved fragrance. And yes, that is it for today. So run nearly done. I'm actually feeling really good. I had a sore foot, sore ankle the last week, and thankfully I've had no pain. And I'm going to say Acqua de Parma, of course, is the main reason for that. There's your neck positive. Do not recommend any pain. Go get it checked out by a doctor. Don't just put a fragrance on. But let me know if there's any Acqua de Parma that you've had. Let me know if there's any you want to try, or maybe that you'd like me to recommend if you've not tried them before. And I'll obviously let you know if I've tried those ones. But for me, they are the absolute gold standard. I absolutely love them. I think if there's only one thing I wish, is that some of their Blue Mediterraneans and some of their colognes were a little bit stronger, but it looks like they are addressing that in their cologne line. I'm sure I've just seen recently they have released an eau de parfum range, and I think for some people they probably want a bit more variety, and again in their case they are releasing more lines at the moment. So I say they stick to their old faithfuls, which they do, but that doesn't mean they stand still either. There's still plenty coming out, and they're definitely a brand, if you haven't tried them, to look out for. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you've got a few ideas from that one, and maybe consider getting one as a treat to yourself this summer. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.